This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source. On San Geek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. All right, Houston, here we go with another episode of A Tip from Gilbert. You got me. Thank you, studio audience. This is Gilbert Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. And you can always call in. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of callers today. 832-570-8075. And I have a real treat for you today, Houston, because we have Kim Ogg, our district attorney. And let me tell you, if there's ever been a DA who knows how to, I don't know the right phrase, but instill justice while still being, having a heart to work with people and bringing both sides of justice together, it's Kim Ogg. And she's been doing it almost her whole life. And so, Kim, welcome to the show.
Gilbert, thank you so much for having me on. I love your show and I love your energy. You know I do.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Kim, the DA, when you were young, Kim, did you ever think you were going to be the DA? How did that happen?
Well, I was sitting in detention after getting caught at high school cheating on a test. And no, I did not think about being the DA. I thought about hoping to get into college with that criminal episode. It really wasn't criminal. It was youthful misbehavior, which is something I've really worked on as DA to keep juveniles from getting senseless records. I was lucky enough to not get one for cheating on a math test. And so when it comes to minor crimes, I think it's really important that we work with young people. What I would tell you is I believe that keeping order in our community is essential to having a healthy community. And it's not that I'm so pro sending people to prison. What we have to do, unfortunately, is separate those who are too dangerous to live among us from us and from our families. And sometimes they do get better. What I would say in my observation as a lawyer of 36 years is that everybody needs a hard stop in our community. We know what's right and wrong. And while we might not know all the laws specifically, I think most people have an understanding of why it's important to not break the law. So your DA is in charge of enforcing law after police have made an arrest and an accusation. We take the cases through court, just like on Law and Order, which I always thought should have been called Order and Law, since they're the one keeping order on the street and we're the one pursuing it legally. So that's what we do. It's an important role. It's one that I love. I never would have dreamed it when I was a kid, but it's actually suitable because I was raised with a lot of accountability by mom and dad who were both public servants. So this is a good job for a public servant. There's a lot of work involved in being the DA.
Let's go to that for a second, because really public service is in your DNA. It's in your blood. Tell us a little bit about that, because your father was a long-time state senator, right?
Yeah, he was in Democratic politics for 18 years. We ran 13 campaigns while I was growing up.
Wow.
I was part and parcel of the postage stamp lickers during the mailouts. I was part and parcel of the block walkers before there were targeted houses and you just went to every one. That's how I learned to get along with dogs. I was part and parcel of watching the Texas legislature go from a Democratic majority to a Republican majority and the changes that we saw in Texas. And I've been for trying to bring a common sense way of governing back. Houstonians want it. We need it. And the DA's position has to be hard on law and order and has to be merciful. And you can have both. And I think that's what's missing in government right now is we hear from extremes who only present one side. And really, life is much grayer than that. It's not as black and white as maybe it's made out to be.
And they want to be super hard until it comes to their child.
It's so true.
You know what I mean? And then it's like all of a sudden, wait a minute, wait a minute. Hold on. We have a caller already. I saw that name on there, Mr. Producer. Who was that again? Alejandro. Is there a Alejandro on the line? And your camera, Kim, is right there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't know where to look.
Don't you worry. Kim, excuse me, Alejandro, are you there? Alejandro. Did we lose him? Hold on 1 minute. Alejandro, are you there? Alejandro. Okay, we'll come back. That's quite all right. Let's go back to your family, because that's a big part of who you are. So you were always the one that was, probably a little one that's there. Whatever.
Vote for my dad.
Yeah.
Vote for my dad, just like your kids did.
Isn't
Gilbert.
that amazing?
Well, it gets in your blood, because public service in our government is the only way our democracy will survive. We have to participate, not just voting. And I think that's where those double standards, when somebody wants the law to apply to other people and not them, that shakes people's confidence in government, and it makes them think there's a double standard. And where there is one, we have to stop it. And that's through equal application of the law. Lawyers are trained to do this. Doesn't mean we get it right every time, but we darn sure try.
Amen. Amen. I think we do have that caller back. Is that caller back? Alejandro, are you there? Alejandro, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, pal. You got me a tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer with DA Kim Ogg. What do you got for us?
Well, Gilbert, first of all, good morning. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
Well, I just want to say what an absolute pleasure it is to be able to speak to you, District Attorney Kim Ogg. But I did have a question for you. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about people out on bail committing crimes and whatnot. It's very popular on Reddit, on Twitter. And I guess I wanted to ask, how did we get here? And could you talk a little bit about that and what you plan to do to address that situation?
Yes. Very interesting. How did we get here? Well, Alejandro, if you don't mind, I'm going to go and help us when you answer your question, separating myth from fact.
Okay. Fact. Judges set bail. They are the only people in the criminal justice system that have control on the amount of bail, on whether any bail is set, on whether personal recognizance, meaning no cash, bail is given. So the parties, the prosecutor generally argues for public safety. We think this defendant should have these conditions of pretrial release, or we oppose pretrial release, whereas the defense has the interest of their client at heart. And they'll say, well, he's got ties to the community, or he's been educated here and has a job, et cetera. And so a judge weighs the values of that right to be free while you're trying to defend yourself, and the community's right to be safe from you if you're a high-risk individual. And so those are the basic balances that judges should seek. We saw a change in judicial perspective as the judiciary changed in 2019, and we began seeing bonds that were much lower than we used to see. And some blame this on partisan politics. I would suggest it's an individual decision by people who have different perspectives, because it's across the board. Some judges will give sufficient and high bond. Others are insistent on giving personal recognizance or free bonds. It is their discretion. And so how we got here is you have 39 different judges making 39 different decisions on 100,000 criminal cases each year, and a jail with a capacity of about 9,000 beds. And so the jail is full. It's not full of low-level offenders. Don't buy that. There's nobody in there for marijuana. You've got only violent offenders comprising about 6,000 of your people in jail. And the answer to that is we got to get those folks trials. We need trials. So that's how this has happened. There's a lot of people on bail who are dangerous. There are people in the jail who are dangerous, but the backlog is what's causing a lot of the risk. And when you have people who've been released on bail for a violent offense, there's a lot of danger to the community. We oppose that. The defense promotes the interests of their client, and there's no good guys or bad guys in this. The problem we see is that without holding more people, you're exposing the public to too much danger. So that's what you'll hear me fighting against.
Now you brought up so many things there for a second, and I'm going to try to peel the onion just a little bit. First of all, do these judges have any type of, this sounds I don't know, unfair, but training about this? I mean, these people come in, they're judges, they have the extraordinary power over the lives of people. Is there some sort of litmus test of if this, then do this, or something to guide them? Or they just all individually can just do what they want?
So individually, judges have the right to do what they want. I trust that all of our judiciary is appropriately trained and that they know the law. What you see is a wide diversity in what the 39 judges we have think is appropriate. And it gives the public an inconsistent perspective, right? Why would Judge A let somebody who committed murder out on a $20,000 bond and Judge B would hold them at a $2 million bond?
Right.
And it's supposed to have to do with the evidence that we present and argue. Same for the defense, but judges use their judgment. That's their job. And so it's just not set on a table or a scale where you get a consistent response. Many people think that that would be better.
Wow. Let me ask you this. You also said a big number, 100,000 crimes. Now, for someone like me that deals in numbers, that sounds like a big number.
It's a huge number, Gilbert. Those are the cases that we file. There's actually hundreds of thousands of cases
that don't even get heard, or they just
they don't get filed. They don't always rise to the level of a crime, or they might never be solved. Think about all the car burglaries that are reported but never solved.
My goodness. Well, 100,000, and when all that, there's only how many beds? You said 9,000?
There's 9,000 beds in Harris County, and we've only got 350 prosecutors. You have a government in county government right now that's very concerned with offenders. The DA's office is concerned with victims and with the public's safety. And I think that the jail is simply undersized. The DA's office is undersized. The sheriff's department undersized.
Wow.
So we just have a giant population where our industry, criminal justice, has not been funded in a way to keep up. And so we're operating at a deficit labor-wise all the time.
Now, if there are how many DAs? There 300?
350 for 100,000 cases every year coming in that are new, plus 105,000 that we had in the backlog. It's whatever you're left with at the end of the year.
That means their work, each district attorney, each prosecutor has got about 300 odd active cases.
Yes, many have up to 1,000.
Come on,
they do. It's just
how
unsustainable.
can you do that? You can't. You cannot do that.
They can't. It's debilitating. But we have people who try. We triage the cases. That's the way we do it. We get rid of the low end, nonviolent cases. We try and work with those offenders as quickly as possible to get them around the system without any major impact on their criminal history, because we want them to get housing, jobs, education, right? So we want to change their behavior, quit doing the illegal thing that was a low-level crime, but a crime, and get it, stay in your job, get a job, etc. So we work with those individuals, but the violent offenders do not plead guilty easily. They have to be set for trial. All the evidence has to be given to them. And we have thousands of those cases, almost 1,800 capital murder and murderers charged.
Oh my God.
That's a city of murderers.
I've got a whole bunch more things to ask, but I know we have several callers there. Alejandro, did we answer your question, pal?
You did. Thank you very much. This is very informative.
I apologize, and I'm so grateful that you were on this whole time. Thank you, my friend.
No worries.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. We got several callers there. We got a Brother Chris. Brother Chris, are you there? Houston, we've got, of course, District Attorney Kim Ogg, who's now been in office 7 years?
Yes, sir.
7 years. It seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
It does.
Doesn't it? No, really, it flies.
It public service is it's a 24. It's about 28 hours every 24.
Isn't that the truth? Go ahead. Is there Brother Chris? Are you there?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, Brother Chris. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Kim Ogg, DA, would it be safe to say, Kim, that you're the first DA in the Houston Harris County, one, to inherit a disaster such as Hurricane Harvey and a pandemic that puts you in your office at a disadvantage that some don't seem to see? And two, is also safe to say that you need the Harris County Commissioner Court to continue to I guess give you the funding that you need to keep good prosecutors in that office and keep them, on staff to continue the good job that you try to do. Would it be safe to say that?
Brother Chris, it would be safe to say that we won the disaster category for district attorney offices with the pandemic and the hurricane. It's just been horrible. We didn't have a courthouse for 4 years. They didn't have hardly any trials during the pandemic. So it's really set us back as a system and as a city and county. And the second thing is, yeah, I'll never apologize for fighting in commissioner's court for my employees to get more money, to get more employees, to handle more cases faster for the general public. I mean, I'm the chief law enforcement official in Harris County. You can always expect me to be in there fighting for dough.
And let me ask you this. All I know is what I read in the paper. And by the way, I don't know why. It just seems like every time I open up the paper, there's a shot at you somehow. Is it just me?
No, there's about 3 or 4 writers that work for the Chronicle.
It's just a shot all the time.
They're heavily involved with my opponent's campaign. They are often sourced by the same negative folks. It's a real shame and it's a real disservice to all the people who work for me at the DA's office and with me to see our office and our great institution degraded by poor writing. It's always half the story in the Chronicle. And so it's hard to fight back with people who buy their ink by the barrel. But I can tell you the writers have not been fair to my office at all. And that's not being fair to the public. That's part of why they're so confused.
Well, hold that thought. Brother Chris, keep going. Keep going, my friend.
And one of the things I can say real quick, Kim, for the people that don't know, it was the federal judges, ladies and gentlemen, who said and made it mandatory for bonds to be issued. It wasn't the DA office. The DA office only following the rules and the guidelines and laws of the federal judges. So if the DA office would not follow those rules, then the DA office would be in trouble. So all Kim Ogg is doing is following the law that was in place by the federal judge regarding the bail bond. So people say, well, why are these people getting bail bond? Because the judges and the DA is following the federal laws that was put in place. That is why, people. So, Kim, I think you're doing a good job. You got my vote, my support. Keep up with it. Nobody's perfect, but you the first person to come along to put in programs to try to make a difference for everybody. And that's just me. And your work speaks for itself. You can't please everybody, but so far so good. You're doing something right. You got elected second term, and the way things looking, you look like you're on your way to third term. You got my support, my vote, Kim.
God bless you, brother.
Way to go, Brother Chris. You're the man. Brother Chris, thank you, Brother Chris. I know we have another caller on, and actually I know she was a guest outside, but let's let her through on the call here. Angie, are you there? Angie, are you there? Angie, can you hear me? Hold on, team. Hold on, Houston. Angie Thibodeau, excuse me.
Thibodeau.
Gilbert. I'm having my.
You ever been to Louisiana?
I'm telling you, I've got to go back. Angie, you there?
I am here.
Angie, how are you? Now, of course,
I'm doing wonderful.
Houston, I know Angie from the wonderful organization that she works for called NACA, and they are phenomenal. And we had them on our show before, the founder. And at the end of the day, they are changing affordable housing all over America. And I have seen it live in person. I have been to their facilities where they have an army of workers, and they are processing people right on the spot, people who normally would not get financing to buy a home. And they have a deal to get below market interest rates on funding. They're now starting to do the actual assembly of houses. And by eliminating a lot of the middle people, they're able to do things below market. And I tell you, it is such a phenomenal organization. Angie, you are doing the Lord's work.
And it is a pleasure to do it, and it's so good that you have DA Kim Ogg on the line as well, because there's so much to affordable housing and providing access to housing. Not only is NACA providing funding to people who thought they'd never get homes before, but we're revitalizing neighborhoods at the same time. And you really want to talk about fighting and combating crime in the areas and in our neighborhoods. You place people in homes and have a sense of pride and taking pride into the neighborhoods for which they live. They begin to police their own streets.
Amen.
Because they want to protect their neighborhoods. So it's good to hear what Kim Ogg is saying, because we're all in this together.
It goes hand in hand, right? Kim, you got to stabilize the community. And then that's one of the first deterrents to crime.
So here's the thing. The community often cannot stabilize itself because of mortgage rates, because of the lack of socioeconomic interest in the area. And when an area becomes crime ridden, it drives real estate values down. It drives the desirability down, and it impacts and creates more crime. For a community to have the opportunity to be individual homeowners, have skin in the game, that is your crime prevention army. That's who calls the cops when they see somebody suspicious. That's right. Who will, let their neighbor know, hey, I was watching out for your yard and I saw such and such. So it is the basic, most best grassroots crime prevention we can have. And I love what I'm hearing about this group.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I was there. I was blown away to see several hundred people, several hundred citizens get processed. Angie, talk to us a little bit though about your race, because I am so thrilled to hear that you have entered the arena and that you're running for state rep. I think that is fantastic. Tell us all about it. And I really want to give you a little bit of time. Just tell us, where's your website and all those things.
Absolutely. I am running for Texas State Representative. That's District 139. That encompasses Northgate Forest, Independence Heights, Acres Homes, and Fallbrook. So if you're in that area and you're exercising your right to vote, I'm asking to please vote Angie Thibodeau from the Fofo. Now you know. I want them to remember it.
Thibodeau from the Fofo, and now you know.
And now you know. There you go.
There you go.
You finally trained him on your name, Angie.
I know. Thank you.
I was trying.
But
and
Angie,
the website is Thibodeau for Texas. That's THIBODEAUX 4 Texas. Thibodeau for Texas.
Now, what's the big issue there in the district?
One of the biggest issues is affordable housing. We have a lot of people that are paying high exorbitant prices for rent, and they don't realize that with a vehicle like NACA, if you can afford to pay your rent, you can afford it.
I have done the math. There is no reason anymore on rent, because NACA will help you get your home, and that way you can create wealth for your family, and it becomes generational. And so I think it's phenomenal.
Right. And we want to combat in those areas. We want to combat some of the food desert issues that we're having. So these are some of these things are state issues. Insurance costs. It has tremendously almost doubled in some cases. These are state issues we want to tackle. And then, of course, public safety. And this is where we partner with our local law enforcement, the DA, and try to combat this all under one roof, one neighborhood, revitalizing it house by house.
It's phenomenal, Ken. Wait till you see it. Well, Angie, in the interest of time, I want to bring you, why don't you be my guest next week?
Consider it done.
Yeah, and I want to talk, obviously, I want to give you some time on the campaign, but I also just want to talk about NACA. NACA. Do I say it right? Is it NACA, right?
They say it both ways. I say NACA, you say NACA, tomato. We're good.
That reminds me, on the Super Bowl, my wife thought the greatest ad was that couch potato, when the
Yeah.
people were sitting on the couch and they were
On the couch.
they were a potato. But no, I really mean it because I want people to know about it. And if you could be ready to tell us where they go for the next one, and because I know you handle these things throughout the
Absolutely.
country.
There's one Saturday too. So I
Where?
won't get a chance. At Greenhouse International, we have over 250 people registered. I'm speaking with them on Saturday, beginning at 10 a.m. so they can come to Greenhouse. And if you're renting, they need to be there. Don't see me there. Beat me there to get processed.
Amen to that. Well, I really mean it. Just count it. You're on next week. I want you on. And then, and so we'll just save it for next week.
All right. And DA Og, best of luck to you.
You too, dear. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Keep up the
Angie.
good work.
Okay. Will do. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Well, that knack is fantastic. But we have other callers now. We have an Alex on the phone. Alex, are you there? I'm trying to get them all in because I know everyone wants to talk to our DA. Alex, are you there?
Okay, I'll talk to you now. 1 moment.
Alex, you got me. And by the way, just in case as we're waiting for Alex, of course, I just want to thank my partners, KWWJ, 1360 AM, 96.9 FM, KYOK, 1140 AM, KCOH, The Source, 1230 AM, Aliento Radio, 1540 AM, 101.7 FM, and Sangeet Radio, 95.1 FM, 1460 AM. I appreciate all of you. We need more type of shows like this where the community can hear things, can be informed, can ask questions, and just this is your station, Houston. Whatever you want to say, what's going on in your neighborhood, your church, anything, just call in and let us know. All right, we have Alex. Are you there?
Hi, good morning.
What do you got there, Alex? For me, a tip from Gilbert.
I had a question for DA Kim Og, and I just wanted to ask her what some of her top priorities are for her next term if she were to be reelected.
What you mean when she's reelected? Because we're going to do it together, but I understand what you mean, Alex. So, Kim,
Alex,
what do you think?
So my top priority is you and your family's safety, but I also don't want your kids or your little brother going to jail or getting a criminal record for what is basically youthful indiscretion. So you can expect the same continued kind of common sense approach. We focus on murder, the highest risk crime for obvious reasons, and the highest risk offender to either leave sitting in the jail or out on bail. It's just too risky for the people around them. They can't get jobs while they're waiting for trials. We have to get our labs moving faster, especially the city lab, so that we can get those most serious criminals tried. And the other priority is to continue with our mental health treatment by working with police to bring homeless, mentally ill people to the Harris Center and a respite spot where they're treated, evaluated, and it's voluntary. They can leave. It keeps them out of jail. This keeps everyone safer. And it helps the folks whose businesses, sometimes these folks live at or near businesses that complain about them as a nuisance. And what they really need is treatment. And so we're seeing a lot of good work there. Same with juveniles. We used to see so many thousands of kids charged and going through the juvenile system. We're really only charging the serious felons. Everybody else is going to counseling.
That is so great, Kim.
It's helping. I mean,
because if you get these young people and you already have a record, they're damaged for life. That's right.
It's impossible.
And the worst thing possible is get them into the jails because that will make them a criminal.
It really does aggravate the situation.
Yes.
So everybody we can work with, we're going to work with, and the people who are too dangerous to work with, we're going to prosecute to the full extent of the law. That's basically the priority. And thank you for asking.
Alex, what else you got? Anything?
That's all I have. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Well, thank you for calling. You know, Kim, one thing is, you know, you have not been afraid to do, you know, some high profile type cases. And I think I admire you for that because wherever the law goes, you're going to go there.
Yeah, we just follow the evidence.
Follow the evidence.
There's a lot of complaints by public officials who get investigated by independent agencies like the Texas Rangers. I don't blame them for complaining. But what I want to encourage everyone is to let the system work these cases out. You know, we have to provide all the evidence we have against somebody to their defense lawyer. Then they get their defense together and they decide whether they want to accept a plea offer or go to trial. This is the way it's worked for more than 100 years in America. And our public officials and our public corruption cases that are pending, what I want to encourage everyone to do is be patient with the system. Usually we come out with the right results. It's imperfect, but somebody has to answer and address complaints about public officials. And since the Texas Republican legislature did away with the statewide office of public corruption prosecution, it unfortunately falls to us, the local elected DAs, who rub elbows with the same people on the Republican and Democratic side that get complained on, and we have to follow the evidence. So when investigators investigate, we present it to grand jurors. And how does that work? Those are randomly selected people who serve for 90-day periods listening to all types of crimes to decide whether there's probable cause to believe that a crime occurred. And that's how we work all of our corruption cases, is we present it to a group of citizens after the investigation is complete and see what they say.
That's a very important point, because there are people who will say, well, she's doing this or she's doing that. And the whole point is, no, she's not. There's a grand jury of our peers who were there deciding if there's enough evidence to bring a case forward.
That's correct. I really think that executive decisions about other elected officials are not the way to go. We utilize our grand jury because that's the community. We want to know what 12 random people have to say about a situation.
And the grand jury itself has been, I don't know the right word, reformed significantly. I think Johnny Mata and others made sure that it was more representative of the community as a whole.
Yes.
So it's really working.
It is. So for 30 years, civil rights activists complained about the composition of grand juries. They were old, they were white, they were friends of the judges.
Right.
That was not fair. And so that's where the old saying, you could indict a prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich, came from. Let me tell you, with randomly selected grand jurors, people who are your neighbors, just showing up for jury duty and volunteering for the grand jury, you get grand juries that look just like our community. They're very diverse, and let me say something, they believe that the public should be able to trust government officials with their money. They look to hold us accountable. And while unpleasant to prosecute both police and public officials, it just goes with the job. Let me say, it makes the DA's job one of the less easy jobs in political life, but it's part of the job. We follow the evidence.
Well, what's interesting is I've been on not the grand jury, but I've been in jury duty. And one of the things that struck me is how much people take that role so seriously. I mean, people really see it as a civic duty, and they come in and they really, really care. I was really struck by that.
So the democracy requires participation. And if you don't answer your jury summons, you're really not doing your part in American government. We need you. The accused needs you. The victims need you. We, the prosecutors, need you. The defense needs you. And I am always amazed at the sincerity of jurors.
Yes.
I really am.
That's
they
the word I'm
take
looking
people's
for.
lives very seriously. They realize how much power they have. And so to suggest that we make up evidence or that we somehow try to negatively influence these folks, it's just wrong. We don't. They're there to serve. We present the evidence. They make a decision. That's how it works.
There you go. Hold on. We got another caller. Is there a Frank on the line? Frank.
Yes, I'm here.
Frank,
Yes,
you got
can you
me,
hear me?
Gilbert Garcia, of a tip from Gilbert with, of course, our DA, Kim Ogg. What do you got, Frank?
Well, Mr. Garcia, I'm a former district judge out in Fort Bend County, Texas. I presided over a district court where we handle felony and civil cases. And as far as bonds, I have set bonds for people. You look at a proper cause report, you look at their case history, and you decide what's a safe amount, a reasonable amount to set their bond. Because based on the law, they are entitled to a bond unless, of course, they're charged with a capital offense. There are some exceptions in regard to capital offenses. I know I had personally set a bond for a person, say, on a Friday, for $300,000. Then on that Monday, I'm told that person has bonded out. So I think what is happening is that our bonding companies are working out payment plans with the defendants and their families where they're not coming up with the entire 10%, and therefore they're being bonded out. But the criticism goes toward us district judges who are actually setting reasonable bond.
So let's go to that for a minute. Are you a judge now?
No, my term ended in 2023, and I am up for re-election to a different court in 2024 in Fort Bend County for a district court position.
All right, Your Honor. Well, I'm going to call Your Honor. Your Honor, let me just ask you this. So let's just go this one more time. So if it's $300,000 and it's typically 10% is what they have to put down.
Correct.
So then,
wait just a second.
okay,
That's by law now.
okay, keep going.
All right. We didn't know if that law would be constitutional or not. It should be, but the Harris County Bail Bond Board set a minimum of 10%. I don't know if Fort Bend is following that, but it was done to end the payment plans of certain bondsmen, which were letting a lot of people out too early without sufficient security. And that was really causing some problems.
So just to be clear, if it's 300,000, it's 10%, that's 30,000. And then there's a payment plan to the 30,000.
There's not supposed to be any more, but they were doing it for before about 2022. It had become a practice that we noticed. I'd never seen it before 19, and I haven't seen it, at least in Harris County, since the law changed.
So putting very little money down, so to speak, they're getting out.
They were
were.
now, and still most people think 10% is an absolute way too low minimum. I'm one of those people who thinks that, but that's been the industry standard since I was first a lawyer back in 1987.
And is that the same throughout the country or other counties, or?
It's similar around the state. I can't speak for other states.
Okay. Your Honor, what do you think? Is it working? Did it work for you?
I would say in most cases it worked, but when you get that exceptional individual that's charged with a very violent crime, and you set what you feel is a $300,000 or $500,000 bond because you feel the county will be safer with this person behind bars, unfortunately, until his or her case is resolved, it wasn't fair. If bonding companies were working out payment plans without that person having to pay that 10%.
Well, let me ask you this, Your Honor. Does that mean you're then, to sort of address this issue, doing something, I'm just making this up now, very high, like $1 million to really get that 10% to a more reasonable amount of money?
Well, that sounds good, but a good attorney will file a request with the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals most likely would lower it. They will give you a writ of mandamus asking you to set that person a reasonable bond unless you got better facts.
Very interesting.
So sometimes that happens. Our answer used to be just try the person before the writ was answered. Used to be that a writ would take a year and a half or so to get through, sometimes less. And what we would always do is just push for faster trials, because we were asking for high bonds. We call them sufficient bonds, but when you know it's at 10%,
right.
$1 million is only $100,000 for somebody who's just murdered somebody. Sounds like a lot, but it's not. So you'll hear prosecutors ask for those amounts. Sometimes judges award them, sometimes they don't. It's really up to the judge.
Very interesting. Well, Judge, so you're now running for a district, a different court, excuse me.
Yes, I'm running for the 434th District Court in Fort Bend County, Texas. It's still the same type court where we have those civil and felony cases, because in Fort Bend County, our courts have general jurisdiction.
What
we have?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, but we do have those serious cases. I think the first case I tried was a murder case, and the very last case I tried during my term was also a murder case.
Judge, they asked you about that. Gilbert asked me about training. What training did judges get on bail, the setting of it, the general court procedures? It was our understanding there's a lot of training.
Yeah. Is there some sort of like standard amongst these bail amounts for these different offenders?
Well, of course, you go through Judges College once you are sworn in. But I gathered most of my experience from my 25 years of practicing law by going into different courts and finding out what judges were doing. I cannot recall, honestly, going to a specific class saying, okay, for this type of crime, you need to set this bond. For this type of crime, you need to set that bond. But from my experience, I knew judges were listening to the probable cause report. They looked at the offense charge, and they looked at that person's criminal background.
Well, thank goodness that you have all that experience. So how does the race look? And I want to give you a quick minute to give us your website and everything else.
But I'm feeling really good about it. From my time out here campaigning, I'm getting a good report from the people I do come across. My website is fraleyforfortbend.com. That's fraleyforfortbend.com. And it gets my profile and who I am and what I've done.
Well, I so appreciate you calling in, and we wish you well. And hopefully you and I will get a chance to get together offline.
That would be great. That would be great.
Thank you, Judge. Count on it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Boy, very, very, very interesting, isn't it?
It is. I like hearing from the judge, anybody who's sat in that job. You know, they ask me a lot, well, why did judges do this or that?
Right.
And I always say, you're going to have to ask the judge. We're all responsible for our own records and our own decisions, and they're called judges because they make judgments. And so, you know, I think everybody's working toward what they think is right and best based on the evidence. I know that the public disagrees with multiple bonds. I know they disagree with bonds for violent offenders. And so we take the position that their safety is most important. That's why we fight these bonds and we fight the release of repeat offenders. But judges do have a totally different job.
Very, very interesting. We got another caller already, Miss Kim. Miss Kim Obb, here we go. What do we got next there, Miss Producer? I thought I saw a name, but I don't recall what it was.
That was Katie calling.
Katie?
I think she's gonna put the
Katie, are you there?
candidate.
Katie? I think I lost you. That's quite all right. I'm going to keep going. Let's talk about the race because, you know, there are no campaign limits, right?
Everybody who's got lots of money, I hope you heard Gilbert, there are no limits
There are
on
no
contributions.
But what's interesting is, let's be realistic. I read somewhere that one of your opponents got like a 7-figure donation.
So
I mean, isn't that staggering? I mean, how can that be that you can give that much money?
I only have one opponent, and he's funded by 3 people. Mr. Soros gave him $1.5 million, and then a couple hundred extra thousand for organizations like Texas Organizing Project to do work in the field. He has a $500,000 contribution from a investor who helps PI lawyers invest their settlements. And third, there's a $100,000 donor from the Woodlands who's considered more of a right-wing cause-oriented person. And so I have about 2,000 donors, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 that I've built up over a lifetime of service. So what you see is a very small financial majority trying to influence a major law enforcement position and race here in Houston. And it's hard to fight, but the best way to do it is to tell people what I'm really up against, which is 3 major donors.
Can you imagine that? I mean, that's come on. That's big bucks.
It is.
That is big bucks.
It makes you really have to wonder, what are they getting for their money?
Well, hold that thought because I want to go back to that. But we got another caller. We have another caller there. Katie, are you there? Katie. Dr. Kathy. I think I've heard your name 3 different times already, but please excuse me there. Katie, are you there? Doctor, can you hear me? You're on a tip from Gilbert.
Hey, Gilbert, it's Dr. Kathy Tatum. How are you?
Dr. Tatum, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Hey, DA Kim, how are you?
I'm well, doctor. And you?
I'm good.
What are you doing? And what do you got for the DA today? And by the way, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, us independent nonprofit minorities are out here working every single day, doing what we need to do, trying to buy a shopping center and make sure that domestic violence and human trafficking, all the things that need to be highlighted, we're doing our best.
I want
Well-
to thank you for that community work. We don't,
Yeah.
the DAs prosecute. We are not social service workers, but if we can't collaborate with folks like her, there's no place for these victims or defendants to really exit to. So thank you for your work.
And it
Doc.
really is. It
Of
really
course.
is the Lord's work.
It
You know, I
is.
mean, really, because
it is.
because
I'm
you're
just-
out
I'm
there at the
just a
front
vessel.
line. You're out there. I mean, you're at the front line. You're really, doing the Lord's work, and it's just so. First, it's so rewarding, but it's hard work.
Oh, it's hard. When
It's
I was the
hard work.
anti-gang director, we'd send kids who were gang involved to a nonprofit, and they'd call back, "Hey, this kid's dangerous. He's involved with the gang." I said,
Yeah.
that's what you were
That's the
supposed to be
point.
working on.
Well, Dr. Tatum. So
But
so
you know,
you go.
Gilbert, you know, I'm very clear, and I don't heard no words, but I have about 3 questions if I can get them in.
Go.
The first one is, why isn't our city investing in more labs? We're so far behind on rape kits and everything. We cannot be the medical center of the world, and we have problems with not having multiple labs. Why aren't we building those? That's my first question.
Stop right there and let
Yep.
me answer it. The city has a lab, the county has a lab, and the Department of Public Safety has a lab. Wouldn't it be great to have one lab that could be funded by all 3 entities?
Absolutely.
All right, that's what we'd like to push with our new mayor. That's what we hope that he'll be able to work with commissioners on, and also state government, because one lab is much more easily regulated, held to a standard, and funded. It's much easier to fund it. You'd have 3 entities funding it. She's right. Right now, there's a 14-month backlog just on ballistics.
Come on, just on ballistics.
If you watch Dragnet from the 50s
Yes.
and 60s, I mean, ballistics is the oldest police science next to fingerprints that exists. And they're that far behind. There's a shortage of techs, but this was a failure, unfortunately, to plan ahead and to fund ahead. And that happened under the last city administration. And so we're going to be working with the leaders right now to get this lab backlog addressed through outsourcing until they can determine whether it would suit everyone best to have one single lab.
Think how
Okay.
terrible the hurt feelings of the victims
Oh,
who are waiting on just the ballistics.
people cannot live with injustice, Gilbert, and it leads to street justice. That's the other thing.
Well,
It can lead to more violence.
And you know what? And I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. Go ahead, Dr. Tatum.
Okay. My second thing is, when you ran last time, we talk about the marijuana. And I understand Texas is not all the way legal. We have the compassion law. But it is really disheartening that so many people in Harris County and city, it's still waiting on trial for marijuana charges.
Now,
and I've
my
heard-
data we have 0 people waiting on trial for
Well,
marijuana
they're still
because
in jail. Go ahead.
because we have not been charging for possession of marijuana under 4 ounces. We've had a couple hundred charged last year, but it used to be 10,000 a year. So I'll assure you that none of the people waiting for trial are charged with under 4 ounces of marijuana. We do not have a compassion law in Texas. We have a hard stop on marijuana statewide. What we did here in Harris County was the most progressive marijuana program in the state. We worked with police to seize the contraband from anybody, regardless of their record, from anybody if it's under 4 ounces, and then they're supposed to send them to an education class. And if they don't go to the education class, then later we can write a warrant and arrest them. But what I would tell you is, we don't have those people in jail. We don't have them awaiting trial. We have them going through education classes. So that is not a
But they're
problem
still
here.
arrested, correct? They're still arrested. They're still
No,
going through the
ma'am.
education.
No,
Okay,
ma'am.
so
They are
please
not
don't-
arrested.
They're
So I'll let you
arrested.
know.
They're arrested
What
if they have 4 ounces
Or more.
Or more.
And some
Okay.
police agencies in these little towns will insist on making the case. And when that happens, we do take the case and we give them a pretrial diversion, just like they would have
Okay.
gotten prior to going. So it's very rare that somebody's going to jail just for a tiny amount of
I'm just
marijuana.
let you know that people are still going to jail. I know it's gotten much better, but people are still getting arrested. It really has to do with the officer's attitude. So we definitely need to work on making sure that that is done more and actually brought up, especially when the cadets are going through their system and are going to different spaces. It is still
Good
happening.
idea.
And,
I'm not
it needs to
seeing
be
it
on
in
that
my
side.
data. So if you
Yes.
have specific cases, you send them to me and we'll work with them.
Absolutely. Now, the third thing before I get off, and I know it's not, you might not answer this question, but I'm going to say it because I am that person. In our community, what I always tell people, especially when you're elected official and you've been in the job very long, not just you, every single person, because you guys hang with each other, a lot of times you don't get to really speak to the people that are actually boots on the ground. And I know that this is things, but when we're talking about sexual assault, when we're talking about molestation, when we're talking about domestic violence, we cannot continue to do press conferences in front of the popular homeless coalition, domestic violence council. I'm going to say it again. They get millions and millions and millions of dollars. And those of us that get out of our bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that do not wear suits and high heels, we need to be seen more. And it doesn't help that a lot of you guys know that there is crooked pastors out there, molesters out there, and people who have been convicted of sexual assault, including E.A. Decker of Greenhouse International, and all of your officers and all your programs are over there. Yes, one of you ladies spoke up at Commissioner's Court, but all of y'all, and I mean all of y'all, need to do something without y'all friends. There's plenty of churches and there's plenty of people out here that don't have a sexual offender. If it was Halloween, you guys go around and make sure that sexual offenders do not be seen. And I'm tired of Greenhouse International getting federal funding and our police officers over there walking with a cop, walking with all this other stuff. We must stop it. Our human trafficking is not because of this and that. It's because of the undercoverness of everything that's happening in Houston is our police officers, is our officials, is our churches, and our sexuals. And I can't tell you how many people I have saved over 24 years because they're afraid of going to other people because we see our politicians over there. And I'm tired of it. So if you get back in office, when do y'all make a decision that the old going over the same people, we must stop this in Houston. And again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for putting out the locks with Mom Demand Action, every town, everybody. But at the end of the day, we must stop showcasing the same people over and over. When are we going to make a decision that, yes, that might be our friend. Yes, we did forgiveness. Yes, he's not on parole, but the perception that we're going to continue to showcase the same nonprofits, the same housing people. We must stop this, Kim. I appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Well, Dr. Tatum, you're so passionate. You brought up a lot of things. I think the most important thing is when you look at Kim Ogg, she has taken on a lot of those people that are her friends that she knows.
Absolutely.
And, that takes courage. And people say, well, she's just doing it. But at the end of the day, where the evidence goes,
we go.
That's where she goes. But Dr. Tatum.
And like I said, she can't do nothing about not having funding. She can ask for it and ask for it. If you don't give her funding, there's nothing too much to do.
It's the same with nonprofits, don't you think? Without the funding, you have a hard time personally financing the help you're providing to others. And so I think reinvesting in our smaller nonprofits who do this important work is really important.
Well, and like I said, Kim, I need the press conferences to stop with a bunch of people standing up there that really don't serve our community. Because at the end of the day, when I see a press conference full of people and then those people up there text me to refer all the domestic violence and I get no funding, but they're sitting there talking about crime, it has to stop.
Yeah, I can see how frustrating that must be.
Amen. Dr. Tatum, would you please call in again, because you bring a vibe that we need on the show. Please call in again.
Blessings, guys. Bye-bye.
Amen. I know we have another call. I want to make sure we get it in here because we're running on time. It's hard to believe. We've got, is there a Ricky there? I thought I saw a Ricky. or was there a Katie? I can understand her concern. I mean, I totally get it, and she's really boots on the ground. Katie, did you say Katie? I'm so sorry. Okay, Katie, are you on the line?
Hey, Gilbert, this is this is actually Karthik Sura, candidate for Texas State Senate District 15. Katie's my
Karthik,
campaign manager. It's
how are you?
doing great. I've been missing you, seeing you on the campaign trail. I loved your constant pushing for Houston to be better than it is, not taking any special interest money, and that's definitely something that we need in this state.
Well, let me ask you this: how's it going in the race?
It's going well. We have been, we've raised more money than any other candidate in the race, and we
Wow.
are knocking doors from acres homes to Atascocita.
Wow, that is fantastic. And what's the big? I mean, this is the first time that seat's been open in, 40 years. I mean,
What are the questions? What are the issues out there?
yeah, that's what I was saying. What's the big issue there? Because this is the first time it's been open in so long.
That's a great question. I think there's 3 to 4 big issues we keep hearing at every single door. One is that people are just terrified about out of control gun violence, like what we saw at Lakewood Baptist Church. And I don't know if it also is going to be linked to a potential hate crime, but it's just unacceptable. And so the legislatures failed to act after Allen and Uvalde and now Lakewood. And so that's one big issue. People are also deeply concerned about their civil rights and reproductive freedom and abortion rights. That's something that's consistently come up at the doors, as well as the fact that people just think that the people in power, after, Paxton taking a $3 million contribution during the trial, they just feel like, it shouldn't be like this, right? Like legislators shouldn't be allowed to serve as lobbyists, and it shouldn't be the case that there's unlimited contributions. And so people want to clean up the system, and as well as the concern about education.
Well, Catherine, you're preaching to the choir here with Kim Ogg, because her opponent's got, $1 million from somebody and $500,000 for another person. I mean, that's right. But let me ask you this, since we have Kim with us, do these gun buyback programs really work, or is it just sort of looks good on the surface? I mean, is it helping?
No.
Yeah.
The law enforcement traditionally does not believe that gun buyback programs actually reduce violence, but safe storage does reduce violence. And the lock boxes that we've been giving people for their cars both prevent some auto burglaries that are intended to get guns, and they also provide some moderate protection for anybody who's underage that might have access to a gun without that lockbox. So I think the out of control gun laws, our push as Democrats for reasonable gun laws, is a huge battleground for us here in Texas. And, we love our guns, but we have a great responsibility when we own them. And so, reasonable red flag laws, raising the age to buy these semi-automatic weapons, eliminating bump stocks. These are just reasonable measures that need to be passed. And I hope that you will be pushing for that in your campaign.
Now I grew up in a hunting family, and my grandfather was a master sergeant, and he was a marksman, and we all took gun safety. And back then the NRA was about really gun safety, and it was all about, hunting, fishing. And somewhere that all changed. But where I'm going is, I've never known of a hunter that needed a what do you call it?
Bump stock.
Yeah, or need
an AK.
Or you need an automatic weapon.
Right.
That's not hunting.
Well, I was raised in the same family. I own guns. We had a child in our home with guns. It's just really important that people are responsible. And it's important to me that they know we prosecute people who negligently leave their firearms accessible to children because it causes so much pain. And
It happens all the time.
It's just terrible.
We had a gun closet, and that was, of course, locked, and all the ammo was segregated, and that was locked separately. I mean, because you got to be careful. Catherine, tell us real quick. I want to give you a minute here on where's your website and everything else.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. One thing just about guns as well, like I was a former award-winning teacher in HISD, and I had to huddle on the ground one time with my students because we were afraid of a potential mass shooter. And this is just unacceptable stuff. And if people are interested in learning more about our campaign, you can go to www.kar THIKFOR I'd be the first minority to ever represent this 70% majority minority district in Texas's history. And I'm not taking any corporate PAC contributions. And so I'm here to stand up for our communities, not special interests. And I do definitely agree with the need to pass expanded background checks, raise the age, require safe storage. Every single child in Texas, in person in Texas, should not have to worry about out of control gun violence.
Wonderful. Thank you for calling in. We'll have you another time. I want to make sure I only got about 30 seconds. Kim, can you believe it's already an hour?
Gilbert, it's been 7 years since I've been DA and an hour since I've been here. Thank you for making the time fly.
No, I mean, it's phenomenal. I want to make sure you tell everyone your website, everything else, so people know how to contribute and where to go to learn more about you.
Thank you. Kim-OGG.com. Please join me on my website, see what we're all about. Please take a look at the District Attorney's Office website, our official website. And if you have questions, call us, because we are a open and transparent governmental entity in as much as we can be. And we are here to serve the public by keeping you safe in a fair way.
Amen. I think we got it. Let's go ahead and cue up the music. Houston, thank you for joining us again for another episode of a tip from Gilbert. And again, I want to thank my partners. Again, KWWJ, KYOK, KCOH, Aliento, Sangeet. Call us all the time, 832-570-8075. And we'll see you next time. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source on Sangeek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM and Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then.